Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, Andrew Fantasia here, coming to you with this crazy mane of quarantine hair that I got going on. I apologize for this. This is just out of control, but what are we going to do, right? We're all in the same boat, the same clogged, hairy, isolated boat. We'll get through this. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about a book, because it's high ground. Welcome to High Ground, and I'm going to talk to you about a Star Wars book, but it's going to be an old Star Wars book. It's going to be a Legends Star Wars book, in fact. But this is something that, I pulled it off my shelf and I looked at it and I was like, I want to talk about this because this can't be overlooked right now. It really can't. In this day and age of Star Wars, we need to remember that this thing existed. So as you guys all know, I am a huge, huge fan of the Star Wars DK visual dictionaries. Those are my jam. I can't get enough of them. I devour these things. Whenever a new Star Wars something is coming out, I am just like, when's the visual dictionary? Give me that dictionary. Here's an example of a Canon one. This is like the newest sort of big chunky one that they came out with. And this one covers episodes 1 through 8, I think. It goes through all the prequels, all the originals, and then the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi came out before Rise of Skywalker, so it doesn't have anything Rise of Skywalker with it. But that's par for the course, right? So, you're going through, here's Empire with Tauntauns and such. They even cover a little bit of Rogue One, which is nice. That's a good idea. And then they just kind of keep going through and show you the images. And so you know how these work. I'm just showing you this as an example. And there's Last Jedi now. So it's really just sort of par for the course. If you are familiar with these visual dictionaries, you know how they work at this point. So here's what's on the docket for today. I would like to direct the court's attention to Exhibit B, the Star Wars Ultimate Visual Guide by Ryder Wyndham. That glare is not part of the book. I apologize. It's as unglared as I'm going to get, unfortunately, with this window here. But this is the book I want to talk to you about today, this Ultimate Visual Guide. It is Legends. It is no longer canon. When was this published? Let's find out. Let's take a peek here. Woo! When were you published? Strange old book. 2005. That makes sense because the image here shows Anakin in his Revenge of the Sith getup. So this would have come out after Revenge of the Sith. Makes perfect sense because it's called Ultimate Visual Guide. They're sort of trying to tie up everything. Revenge of the Sith was at one point supposed to be the last movie, so they figured, yeah, there we go. We can finally put out a guide that's very complete and whatnot. But here's the reason I want to talk about this today. I was flipping through this, and I was actually debating whether or not I still wanted it. I keep a lot of my old Star Wars books, but I kind of want to, thin the herd a little bit. I only have so much shelf space, and even though this is thin, I was like, do I need this? I mean, it's a nice cover, but I have a nicer visual dictionary that's bigger with more stuff from Legends, so do I really need this? What does this cover that one doesn't? Here's the answer. The other visual dictionaries that I own, particularly that Legends one and the one I just showed you, cover the movies, and that's it. Makes sense. You got all the pictures of the actors. Here's Ewan McGregor holding a lightsaber. Here's Daisy Ridley with her staff, etc. But then along comes this book. And this book, as I was flipping through it, wondering whether I should hang on to it or not, this book blew me away because it did something that Disney, if you're watching, and I know you aren't, you need to get on this. Especially because canon is so important now, more important, arguably, than it has ever been. Ryder Wyndham's Ultimate Visual Guide to Star Wars tells the Star Wars story. It goes through Star Wars chronologically, so starting from the prequels and going all the way through to Return of the Jedi, which at the time was the end. But here's the kicker, and I'm going to do this to the best of my ability with one hand. Hey, neck, help me out here, neck. Here we go. See if I can... Nope, my neck is of no help. It's all right. You get a nice foreword by Ian McDermott, too. So let me just get to the meat of it here. So here we go. We're starting off with a galaxy far, far away. This is obviously the prequel era, because you see Coruscant there. But already, you can see something interesting, can't you? You see artwork. It's not just images of actors, it's artwork. And that is where this beautiful book shines above a lot of the others. Is because, folks, this book covers what at the time was the whole Star Wars story chronologically not just movies, but everything. And yes, I do mean everything. You got a galaxy map here, but then as we go on, there's a little overview about the Jedi Order, and then on the next page here, there's an overview about the Sith. But as you can see, it's talking about everything. See that Sith guy? He's not in the movies, folks. Who is this? This is Naga Sadow. Naga Sadow is a famous old Sith. If you played Knights of the Old Republic, you got to pillage his tomb on Korriban. So it's going through the Sith lore. That wasn't just in the movies. That's in Dark Horse comics. That's in novelizations and stuff. Talking about these Sith holocrons. That's obviously pulled from a comic book, and this as well. It's going through the Star Wars saga chronologically with everything in mind, not just the movies. And I think that is friggin' beautiful. Look at this. You got the Great Sith War with all these illustrations. As far as I know, I think everybody prefers these over just still images from the movies. Like, the illustrations are always so nice. And then it keeps going. Look, Ascension of the Dark Lord, and there's Darth Nihilus, one of the coolest Sith ever from Knights of the Old Republic 2. And it goes through the Knights of the Old Republic story, because that back then was canon. So it's like, yeah, we're going to include it. We're going to tell the history of the galaxy from top to bottom, and that includes everything ever written about it. There's more. Keepers of the Peace. There we go. And then we start getting into the movies, right? Now, the movies didn't talk about Darth Maul's apprenticeship with Sidious, but the comics in between did. So let's talk about that in the visual guide. It makes perfect sense. Then you get to episode 1, and it's going to cover episode 1 like any good visual dictionary would, but it's also going to mix and match things. Like, here's images from the movie, here's an image from the comic. So you get so much variation on every page. You never know what moments are going to be shown to you in what form. And I think that's fantastic. And then once we get here to the Clone Wars, obviously it covers the Battle of Geonosis. And then there's a whole chapter on the Clone Wars, because guess what? That animated cartoon, that 2D one, was part of the deal back then. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Asajj Ventress. We're going to talk about Dirge. We're going to talk about all the things that happened to Obi-Wan and Anakin during that war. And then we're going to get to Revenge of the Sith. We're not going to skip that little juicy bit in between, because we're covering all the bases. And that's just my point here that I'm going to keep. That's the dead horse I'm going to keep kicking throughout this entire video, folks. Is just look at this. Look how sexy this is, man. It is going through everything. And yeah, maybe it's not super detailed, because if it was super detailed, this would be a much thicker book and my neck would not be pleased with me right now. But it is enough of everything that it acknowledges everything. It makes everything feel like part of the history of the galaxy. This is a textbook of the history of that galaxy, and it's covering everything, even if it's not in the most spectacular detail. That's okay. Look, there's Prince Shizor. He was important. We don't want to not talk about Prince Shizor. There's Baron Fell, an Imperial TIE pilot who is really good at his job. He was only in, I think, the comics and books. Why not include him? That just because he's only in comics and books doesn't mean he wasn't a part of the universe back then. Include him. Again, nice drawing of Harrison Ford. Nice drawings of Boba Fett pulled from the comics. This is great stuff. I just got rid of the cover. Hopefully that'll make this easier. But look, this is great stuff. And this is what I want to see Disney start doing. Because, as we all know, us Star Wars fan boys and girls and men and women, is that canon is really important now. Canon is more important than ever. And we can't ignore it in these visual dictionaries. There is no good reason why that big visual dictionary I showed you earlier, there's no good reason why it doesn't have images from Clone Wars and Rebels. There is no good reason why it doesn't have images from the new Marvel comics. No good reason. Look how great this is. Look how much more complete this feels by acknowledging all of those things. By taking into account, yeah, cool, we can show you images from the trash compactor, but we can also show you this image from the original Marvel New Hope comic, because that's, why are we ignoring that? Let's make it much more varied. Here's the encounter on Mimban. Here's Splinter of the Mind's Eye. They didn't even leave out Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was a holdover sequel. That's great. That's what I want to see, baby. I can't speak for everybody, but I think that's what we all want to see. It just makes this feel so much more complete, so much more interesting. It makes the Star Wars galaxy feel bigger just by acknowledging that there's more stuff than just the movies. Look at that great drawing of Jabba the Hutt. Seriously, man. A Shadows of the Empire page. Of course, there should be a Shadows. There is no excuse to not have a Shadows of the Empire page. And once we get past the Battle of Endor, we have the new era, which was all books and comics. So from now on, you're just going to be seeing EU material covered in this book. And look how much more there is. There's still like a good 20 pages left in this book. That's a lot of pages dedicated to EU material. That's 20 more pages than the Rise of Skywalker dictionary dedicated to Emperor Palpatine. I can tell you that right now. I don't even like Thrawn, and I'm pleased with this page. I'm so glad it's included, because it should be. Look at this. This is great. The Empire Reborn now. You're going into the comics, and as somebody who has not read a whole lot of this stuff, especially the comics, I never read a comic Star Wars related until after the Disney buyout. So this makes me want to go back and be like, what was that Dark Empire comic like? What was this new Jedi Order comic like? Now I'm curious because it's telling me stuff. And then you got some behind the scenes and everything that covers, not just the filmmaking, but the movies. Not just the men, but the women and the children too. And the posters, that is some good stuff. And then a whole chapter about expanding the universe and what that means. And merchandising, Spaceballs the flamethrower. Look at this. This is a visual guide. This is how you do a visual guide. I can't stress that enough. And that is Ryder Wyndham's Star Wars Ultimate Visual Guide, this little lost gem from 2005 that I almost threw out, and I'm so glad I didn't. DK, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, listen to me. The next book, the next big chunky book, the next this, put all 9 movies in it, sure. Put the Rebels, put the Clone Wars, put the comics, put everything. If you need to make it 2 chunky volumes like this, or maybe even 3, and put them in a nice box set and charge us $100, I will pay for that. That would be a beautiful box set. I don't understand why that hasn't been done yet. Especially, now that, for lack of a better term, phase 1 of Disney's whole Star Wars venture is over. And now, they've made their movies. A lot of their comic series have come to an end and are rebooting, but it feels like a big chapter has closed in the new era of Star Wars. This is the perfect time to release something like this. Include those young adult novels. It can literally just be a little picture inside a circle that says, here's the girl on this farm planet who made friends with Ahsoka Tano in the Ahsoka book. That's all you need. And that one little detail is going to fill up your universe even more than this very impressive, beautiful, chunky work of nonfiction already has. I really, really hope somebody takes a literal page out of this literal book and does that. Because, folks, what they did with this skinny, barely there virtual guide is so much more substantial than what they did in this admittedly beautiful but much bigger visual guide that covered literally just 2 more movies and a little bit of Rogue One. This covered even more in less space. I don't know how they did it, but they found a way. Take note, it's the same company, it's still DK. It can be done again. I want to see it done again. Do you guys want to see it done again? Let us know. Chime in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this High Ground, scumbags. I am Andrew Fantasia. I'll see you next time. Hopefully, we'll get more visual dictionaries in the future, and they'll be glossy, and they'll be beautiful, and they'll be complete and not missing, the main villain. Seriously, Rise of Skywalker Dictionary. What is up? What is up? Anyway, I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thanks so much for watching, scumbags. I will see you here next time. Until then, may the force of others be with you.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.